Hey everyone, welcome to another Practical Pet Business. Thanks for taking time and joining us. We know you're busy, so let's get right into this. Lorin, what do we do if we've got one bad apple on the staff?
Oh my gosh. So I have a friend that is a business owner and she's currently dealing with this. And my whole mantra as she's telling me situation after situation after situation after situation. And she goes, oh, and then there was this. I was like, oh my gosh, why are we having this discussion? This person needs to go because they're polluting the entire team. I finally had to circle back around and say, what was the team like before this bad apple came in? Everybody got along. It's a grooming department. Everybody got along. There wasn't any issue. Everybody liked working together. I don't even see what the discussion is. This needs to go. The problem with that bad apple is, it's the a rising tide elevates all boats. It doesn't when you're dealing with human beings. It tends to be the opposite. It's like that lowest common denominator, negative person seems to pollute and drag other people down around them. And it's not conducive to a good atmosphere. Nobody wants to work with that. People start calling in, there gets to be cliques and conversations and gossip and, tales that are spun that aren't true. And it's all bad. It's all bad. My vote is to eliminate it as soon as possible, as soon as you recognize it, not meaning, one thing, because you have to look at, is this the other employees are jealous or do they feel like this person's affecting their money, because they're taking dogs, that sort of thing. But let's face it, I mean, we've all been doing this long enough to be able to look at this and go, this was said, there was no problem before I brought this person in. Now all of a sudden, there's nothing but drama, there's nothing but negativity, there's nothing but problems, there's nothing but complaints. And the customers are going to start to feel this. More importantly, the animals are feeling it. And that's gotta stop. And
Yeah,
the sooner
I
you
mean,
cut ties, the better.
yeah, and once you've identified it, I'm certainly someone who likes to let's have a conversation and is this something that we can work through? Sometimes people are just, quite frankly, oblivious how they're coming off. Um, but once you're to your point, once you've really identified, no, this isn't something we're going to fix, um, the sooner the better. Um, but I do think that it starts in that hiring process. And
Mhm.
I think for a lot of pet businesses, it is very much we got to find someone instead of we got to find the right person.
Mhm.
And I would say my best experiences have been when we've taken the time, really gone through properly. As much as are you a fit for the business? Are you a fit for the culture? Are you a fit for the atmosphere?
Right.
Culture is so important across the board. And this is the one that always blows me away. How much time do you spend at work? A good chunk. How much time do you spend thinking about work? In some cases, an even bigger chunk. So you've got to get the culture part and the culture fit right if you want it to run smoothly. And if it's not, start back at that point.
Well, it's really problematic though, is some people interview really well. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've looked at people and go, why'd you hire them? They interviewed great. It's like,
Sure.
oh my gosh, everybody's an 8 by 10 glossy until, they've been sitting in the job for a little while. But she did talk to this bad apple repeatedly, and here's what happened. It became a gaslighting situation. The employee started twisting it and saying, well, apparently, I'm not qualified to weigh in on this. And just little things like sarcasm and those little conversations that everybody else, all the other employees are like, oh, and really digging, and just creating more drama. So, once you know that, it's just got to stop. It's got to be over.
Yeah. I think too, and not that I think my points kind of almost come off, it's the employee, pro employee, but I do think there's a process too, right? And one of the things that I've just seen in the pet world is, to your point, gosh, they interviewed so well. They really know it. I don't need to do a lot. I can just put them and get them going, right? And that's just a recipe for failure. You've got to have a process. You've got to have onboarding. Make sure they really do know the things, because you're right. Everybody's got that glossy, 8 by 10, and oh, they're so wonderful. It's like that, everything is greener on the other side of things than it really is. So have that process not only in the hiring, but then the onboarding. And let's really make sure they understand your philosophy as the business owner. Because if they don't, you're hoping, and to your point for your friend there, hope is not a good plan, right? Make sure you've got someone who's in sync and that you've laid out what you consider to be in sync. This is how we do things here. This is our process. And walk them through that to expect those folks to assimilate in. There's a lot going on when you're bringing someone into the house. And by the way, your business is your house. So bring them in with the best possible way to succeed. And I think in doing that, you'll start to see very quickly they're going to fit in well, or we're going to have some issues that we're going to have to work through and or make some decisions on. And
But I
that's
see a lot of
business.
what I
I
see
just
a
don't
lot of
see that.
retailers struggle with is everybody wants to be fair. They want to give people a chance. They want to be fair.
Yeah.
I've, I've
Can I just
I've
stop
done
you there
that
for a
too.
second, though? Because I know if my kids are watching this, they're gonna just respond. Hey, everybody out there, my dad doesn't believe fair exists, and I don't. And it's like my one pet peeve in the world. That's not fair. Well, I don't believe in fair for this reason. Fair would imply that everything is equal, and therefore we can judge what's fair and what's not
Yeah.
based on
I
equal everything. So if you have that expectation out there, it just doesn't exist.
okay, I don't mean it like that. When I say they want to be fair, I mean they want to be open-minded. They want to be the good employer. They want to be
I love that.
understanding.
Yeah.
They want to be open to another chance. The most successful employers I've ever seen are the ones who cut ties like that. It's shocking. I mean, I've known a couple of them that I'm like, oh, and they're like, there's no point. If the handwriting's on the wall, there's no point. Let's just move on. I don't want to deal with extended unemployment. I don't want to deal with, trying to kumbaya my way through this, and I was like, oh, okay. It seems stern. And it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people to fire. It's really, really hard for people. A lot of people don't know how to interview other people. They don't know how to fire people. They feel bad. And for a lot of people that are in the pet industry, because this is an industry that is based so much on what is near to and dear to our hearts, that our heart is involved a lot. And so unfortunately, it's involved when we're dealing with employees as well. And I've done it too. You just want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I just don't think that that's working like it should. It certainly doesn't work anymore in the favor of the company. It's not an all or nothing. Just, for the majority of what I've seen, I sit back and I look at some of these employers that do this. That's it, move on. And they move on to somebody else and they're successful sooner. They're more successful. They grow quicker. And I'm like, wow, there's something to be learned there.
Yeah, I think what you're also doing is you're benefiting everybody in the process. dragging it out, the stress for everybody involved. And the sooner that everybody can get on to a more successful path is better for everybody in the process. So there have, it's interesting because I have had situations, um, as an employee as well as an employer or a leader where I have literally had to say, this is not the fit for me. And I've got to move on. And so, as an employee, if you're someone watching this right now, sometimes the best gift you get is
Mhm.
knowing this is not the right place for me. And I'm glad I figured it out now, and I've got to figure out a different
And it's
pathway.
okay. It's
It
okay.
is
There's nothing
okay.
wrong
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. And so, uh, you know, I think if you take that approach as a leader, as an owner, it's so much better than just the gaslighting and the let me build to this and let me build to that. Let's just, here's where we are. Let's be open about this. Um, I find, to your point earlier on the poisoning the well, if you will, that's that other part of it as well. It's how long do you leave that in there to fester out and impact other areas is so tough. It's just,
Because you don't want to lose a good employee
yeah, well, and
over this.
it's not just losing the good employee. It's you don't want to turn the good employees or the good atmosphere
Right.
into something that it didn't have to be.
Right.
And we and that's a tough one too. That's where it's interesting because we've had situations where you're put in a bad spot, and that's why I like to really define, the family members one, the dating stuff, all these like gray areas. I find gray areas are the ones that are the most likely to fall apart because it's just like, oh man, yeah, we should have seen that coming. That's the one that always gets me when I'm talking to other business leaders and owners, and they're like, "Yeah, we have a policy now." It's like,
Yeah.
who would
Yeah.
you have done if you could have gone back and you just put that? But to your point, I want to be fair, I want to be open minded, all of those things. No one wants to be a monster or on the I've got to I will say I have my sister, if she's watching this, would be like, Rob's so black and white sometimes, and it's true because I've learned over the years there are just things you have to be very certain about and very clear with people, otherwise they'll have their interpretation and I'll have my interpretation. And I am one of the most open-minded folks you'll ever meet until it causes problems and, to your point, poisons the well. I don't have time for that. I don't want to spend the time cleaning out the well because it never gets back to where it was, which was such a beautiful spot prior to the damage that can cause. So yeah, let me be very clear. Here's where that is. Here's where this is. Operate within that, and feel free. Tell me where your lines are as well. We all operate so much better when we have clarity as opposed to the gray areas and the well, maybe nots. I find that more confusing for people than being able, as a leader, as a business owner, saying, here's the guide rails. You're not sure, always come to me, and vice versa. If I don't think you're seeing it clearly, I'm going to let you know because I don't want you to have to figure out something that I should have given the guidance to you on so that situation with the bad apple we can identify quickly, because I do agree with you, identifying it quickly is the best result for everybody
Mhm.
in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's tough, it's tough. And I will say too, if you identify it early, there can be those times where you can turn it around because there's a lot of, and it depends. Many times I find it depends on the person's perspective coming in the door, and hopefully you've identified that coming in. But I've had situations where I'm not the hiring person, and I'm like, ooh, okay, well, let me at least be clear from my standpoint how I see things. And I have found that with my clarity, I can sometimes influence others who don't maybe give that kind of clarity. So if you're a business owner and you're not giving clarity, you're asking for others to create the clarity that hope.
Well, so much gets left open to interpretation, right? So if you're leaving other people to do it, the only thing they can give is how they understand it, how they interpret it, which may
Yeah,
not be exactly right. And it works for them and that they basically get it, but when they have to articulate it, they can't necessarily articulate it. And I think that you used the term earlier about the people at work being a family. Mm, been down that road too, where I've tried to do
yeah.
that
Oh yeah,
and
no,
tried
I
and tried
yeah,
not to, and not to works better.
yeah,
That they're not your family. You have an expectation. You absolutely are requiring something of them in return for remuneration. So, excuse me, I really think that addressing employees, excuse me, as employees and making it clear that doesn't mean that you have to be, really hard. It just means that, I can't come to you as a family member and say, "Gosh, can I skip paying you this next week because I got to get my car fixed, and it would really help me out if you'd wait." Because all of a sudden, you're going to find out how quickly they don't think they're a family, that they're part of a family. So I think that, you can treat your employees with respect and take care of them and have fun with them. But I think you need to be very, very specific as to your business expectations and
yeah.
where the lines are drawn.
Yeah, I think the actually it's a hiring of family members actually that I was pointing to is not something that I'm
Oh
a
God, I would never do that.
big fan. Yeah, but I will say this though, in response to what you just shared, even within a family, there is a structure and there is a hierarchy and there is we're going to do things this way because otherwise it's just chaos in your family and that doesn't work either. So I want to and I think it's interesting that you bring this up too, because so my philosophy in hiring is I would love to hire people who are better than me because they're going to make me better, not just because they're better in an area, but because I'm going to elevate my game. That whole lifting all boats, like we talked about earlier. Um, Same thing with the family. I want to see family members succeed, but there are still limitations because you can't do everything for everybody. And if you find yourself as a business owner overcompensating in those areas, then yeah, that's an issue. But I will say my best experiences in environments is where we have been able to operate in a great culture in a business sense. It is a business at the end of the day. And if that is not happening, that's going to create additional problems that I don't even want to open up those doors. So I am with you. At the end of the day, if it's a business, it's a business. That doesn't mean it has to be cold and hard. It also doesn't mean it has to be everybody is, family member and all the rest. There's a balance to everything.
Right.
And I think even as we've talked about in previous episodes, even with customers, there are customers that you may like more than other customers. That doesn't mean though that, oh hey, I'm just going to borrow this cup of sugar and I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, I'll get it back to you. Your lawnmower, you don't need that for the next couple months, right? Because we're family. It's a business, and at the end of the day you got to run the business like a business. One bad apple creates many other bad apples. You wouldn't do that in your orchard if that's how you lived and that's how you fed. You get rid of that bad apple so it doesn't poison the rest of the tree. Same thing across the board. So good conversation, interesting conversation, as we often have, which is why we do these. And we thank you all for joining us as we have these conversations. Uh, feel free, send us another apple or 12 for Laura and I to bite off and chew on. We're happy to let you know how we've looked at things, how we address things. And thank you to all those that have been giving us feedback. Please continue that. Love having these conversations with you all. We plan on having many more. Thanks for joining us here on Practical Pet Business. We'll see you next week. Good luck to you this week.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.